The church smelled like rain, old wood, and dying flowers the day I buried my husband. My black heels were soaked from the storm outside. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. People kept hugging me, whispering things like, "Stay strong," and "He's in a better place." But I barely heard any of it, because the only two people I needed that day weren't there: my parents. My own mother and father skipped my husband's funeral. At first, I thought maybe they got into an accident, maybe traffic, maybe something happened. But then my phone buzzed during the burial. One message from my mother. "We had an important appointment today. We'll explain later." That was it. No apology, no grief, nothing. And 3 days later, I found out where they really were. Sitting in a psychiatrist's office, talking about me, planning something so cruel it made my blood run cold. My name is Claire. I'm 32 years old. And until 6 months ago, I thought I knew exactly who my parents were. Loving, protective, old-fashioned maybe. But good people. The kind who never missed birthdays. The kind who called every Sunday morning without fail. I used to brag about them to my husband, Ethan. Ethan always smiled when I talked about them. "You got lucky," he'd say. "Most families aren't like that." I believed him. God, I believed all of it. Ethan and I met 8 years ago in the emergency room waiting area after I sliced my hand open trying to open a can of soup. I was furious and embarrassed. He sat beside me holding a towel against his own forehead because he'd walked into a glass door minutes earlier. "You too?" I asked. He laughed. "Apparently today's not our day." That laugh stayed with me. 3 months later, we were dating. 2 years later, we got married in a tiny outdoor ceremony under string lights and oak trees. My dad cried during his speech. My mom danced barefoot with Ethan at the reception. Everything looked perfect. But perfect things can rot slowly from the inside. Ethan wasn't rich. He worked as a high school history teacher. But he had this way of making life feel safe, like no matter what happened, we'd survive it together. Then he got sick. At first it was headaches, small ones. Then migraines so bad he'd throw up in the bathroom at night. One morning, he forgot where he parked the car. Another time, he forgot my birthday. Ethan never forgot anything. The diagnosis came in October: brain cancer. Stage 4. I still remember the doctor's voice. Calm. Clinical. Too calm for words that destroy lives. "We can try treatment," she said carefully. "But you should prepare yourselves." Prepare yourselves, like there's a checklist for watching the person you love disappear piece by piece. My parents acted supportive in the beginning. My mother brought casseroles every Tuesday. My father drove Ethan to appointments when I had work. They hugged me, told me we'd get through it together. But slowly, things changed. Tiny comments at first. "You look exhausted, Claire. Are you sure you're handling this well? You've lost weight." One night after chemo, Ethan fell asleep on the couch. My mother pulled me aside in the kitchen while washing dishes. "You can still leave, you know." I stared at her. "What?" She dried her hand slowly. "You're young. This doesn't have to become your whole life." I felt sick hearing her say it. "That's my husband." "I know," she whispered. "But watching someone die changes people." I walked away before I said something cruel. But the seed had been planted. The months became brutal. Ethan lost his hair first, then weight, then energy. Some days, he couldn't even walk to the bathroom alone. I slept maybe 3 hours a night. Bills stacked on the counter, insurance denied treatment after treatment, and through all of it, my parents kept watching me, like they were studying me. My father started asking strange questions. "Do you still talk to your friends? Are you eating properly? Have you considered therapy?" At first, I thought they were worried. Now, I know better. One evening, I came home from the pharmacy and heard them talking in the living room. They didn't know I was at the door. "She's becoming obsessed," my mother whispered. "She's isolating herself," my father answered. "She won't survive this." I walked in hard enough to make them jump. "What exactly are you talking about?" My mother forced a smile too quickly. "Nothing, sweetheart." But I noticed the silence after that, the uncomfortable kind. The kind people use when they're hiding something. The night Ethan died was freezing cold. December 17th, 2:14 a.m. I remember because I kept staring at the digital clock while listening to him struggle to breathe beside me. His hand felt ice cold in mine. He looked at me and whispered, "I'm sorry." I broke instantly. "Don't apologize," I cried. "Please don't apologize." He tried to smile. Then he said something I'll never forget. "Don't let them make you feel crazy." At the time, I didn't understand what he meant. 10 minutes later, he was gone. The funeral happened 4 days later. My parents never came. I stood beside Ethan's grave alone while rain soaked through my coat. People kept asking where my family was. I lied every single time. Emergency, car trouble, they're devastated. But deep down, something felt wrong. Very wrong. 3 days after the funeral, my mother finally called. Her voice sounded strangely cheerful. "We need to talk," she said. I drove to their house immediately. The second I walked inside, I noticed papers spread across the dining room table. Medical forms, notes, pamphlets. One of them said consecutive grief disorder. Another said interfinanciation, sprategies, one dependent personalities, for independent personalities. My stomach dropped. What is this? My father stood slowly. Claire, sit down. No. My mother took a breath like she'd rehearsed this. We've been consulting someone. A lawyer? A psychiatrist. The room went cold. What? My father rubbed his forehead. Honey, we're worried about your mental state. I laughed. Actually laughed. You skipped my husband's funeral to talk about me? It wasn't like that, my mother snapped. Then explain it. And they did. Every horrifying piece. Apparently, for months, they'd been documenting my behavior, my crying, my exhaustion, my panic attacks after Ethan's diagnosis. They'd recorded conversations without telling me, taken notes about my moods, my sleep, my appearance. You were falling apart, my mother insisted. My husband was dying. You became unstable. I couldn't breathe. Then my father said the sentence that shattered whatever love I had left for them. We were preparing to seek temporary conservatorship. I just stared at him. Conservatorship. Over me. Like I was incapable of controlling my own life. I whispered, You tried to take my freedom away? We were trying to protect you. No, I said, you were trying to control me. My mother started crying. You stopped thinking clearly. You refused help. You pushed everyone away because my husband was dying. The entire room echoed with silence. And then my father quietly admitted the real reason. The psychiatrist said grief can trigger inherited instability. Inherited. My grandmother had schizophrenia. She died in a psychiatric facility before I was born. My parents had spent my entire life terrified I'd become her. And when Ethan got sick, they decided it was finally happening. I left their house shaking so hard I almost crashed my car. The betrayal physically hurt, like something tearing open inside my chest. For days I ignored their calls, their texts, their voicemails. But they didn't stop. My mother kept sending messages. We love you. We're trying to help. You're not seeing clearly. Then came the final message. We already filed preliminary paperwork. I felt all the blood drain from my face. They'd actually done it without telling me. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Her name was Denise Harper, mid-50s. Sharp eyes, sharp voice. After listening to everything, she leaned back in her chair. Your parents are building a competency case. I swallowed hard. Can they win? She hesitated. That depends. On what? Whether anyone believes you're unstable. That sentence haunted me. Because grief does look ugly. I wasn't sleeping. I cried randomly. I forgot meals. I stared at walls for hours sometimes. What if people believe them? What if I started doubting myself too? Denise noticed the panic on my face. Claire, she said firmly, being devastated after losing your husband does not make you insane. I burst into tears right there in her office. Because it was the first time someone finally said it out loud. The weeks after that became a nightmare. My parents contacted relatives behind my back, family, friends, even neighbors. Suddenly people looked at me differently, like I might snap at any second. One afternoon, my Aunt Linda stopped by unannounced. You should really listen to your parents, she said softly. I stared at her. You think I'm mentally unstable? She avoided my eyes. That's not what I said. But it was exactly what she meant. The rumors spread fast. She's not coping. She talks to Ethan's clothes. She barely leaves the house. She's losing touch. Do you know what grief actually feels like? It feels like waking up underwater every day. Like your body moves, but your soul doesn't. And the worst part? People only support your grief when it's convenient. After a few weeks, they expect you to smile again, function again, be normal again. If you don't, they start treating you like a problem. One night, I finally listened to Ethan's last voicemail again. His weak voice crackled through the speaker. "Hey baby, if you're listening to this later, it means I probably chickened out of saying this face to face." Small laugh. Weak, painfully weak. You are stronger than you think, and not everyone who loves you knows how to love you correctly. I closed my eyes. Then he added quietly, "If things get weird after I'm gone, trust yourself first." That's when I realized something terrifying. Ethan knew. Somehow, he knew what my parents were becoming. The hearing date arrived in February. I barely slept the night before. I kept imagining strangers deciding whether I was capable of running my own life. My own parents sat across from me in court the next morning wearing concerned expressions like grieving heroes. I hated them for how convincing they looked. My mother even cried while speaking to the evaluator. She's not herself anymore. I wanted to scream. Of course I wasn't myself anymore. The love of my life was dead. Then something unexpected happened. Denise handed the court a folder. Inside were emails, hundreds of them, messages between my parents and the psychiatrist, and one sentence changed everything. My father had written, "If Claire becomes legally dependent, we can finally stop her from making reckless emotional decisions." The judge read it twice. Then Denise dropped the second bomb. My parents had also attempted to access Ethan's life insurance policy after his death. My jaw literally dropped. I turned toward them slowly. "What?" My mother looked horrified. "It's not what it sounds like. You tried to touch his insurance money?" My father snapped defensively. "We were trying to protect the assets. Assets, not Ethan's memory, not me. Assets. That's what this was really about. Control. Money. Fear. Everything mixed together into something poisonous." The judge denied the conservatorship request immediately. But honestly, that wasn't the part that hurt most. The part that destroyed me was seeing my parents refuse to apologize afterward. Outside the courthouse, my mother grabbed my arm. "We did this because we love you." I pulled away instantly. "No," I whispered. "You did this because you were afraid." My father's face hardened. "You'll understand one day." I looked him dead in the eye. "No, I won't." Then I walked away, and for the first time in my life, I didn't look back. The months after that were lonely, painfully lonely. I blocked my parents completely, changed my locks, started therapy on my own terms. Not because I was crazy, because trauma leaves scars, and I was finally ready to heal without being controlled. Slowly, life started returning in tiny pieces. I began sleeping again, cooking again, laughing sometimes. The first time I laughed without guilt, I cried afterward for 20 minutes. Healing feels strange when you thought pain was the only thing keeping someone's memory alive. One spring afternoon, I visited Ethan's grave alone. The air smelled like fresh grass and rain. I sat there for almost an hour talking to him quietly like I used to. Then I noticed someone standing behind me. My mother. I froze instantly. She looked older. Smaller somehow. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then she whispered, "I miss you." I swallowed hard. "You had me." Tears filled her eyes immediately. We were scared. I know. We were scared. I looked down at Ethan's headstone. "You abandoned me at the worst moment of my life." She started crying harder, but for once, I didn't rush to comfort her. Because grief had finally taught me something important. Loving someone doesn't excuse destroying them. Before leaving, my mother handed me a small envelope. Inside was a letter from my father. He'd been diagnosed with early dementia 2 weeks earlier. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. The paranoia, the obsession, the fear. Part of him had already started slipping long before anyone realized. But even then, I couldn't fully forgive them. Pain doesn't disappear just because you finally understand where it came from. Still, I mailed my father one final letter. Not hateful, not warm either, just honest. I wrote, "You taught me to fear becoming broken." But losing Ethan showed me something different. Grief is not madness. Love is not weakness. And surviving pain does not make someone unstable. It makes them human. I never got a reply. It's been 2 years now. I still miss Ethan every single day. Some mornings I still reach across the bed half asleep expecting him to be there, but I survived. Not because someone controlled me, not because someone rescued me, because I learned to trust myself again. And maybe that's the cruelest thing grief does. It strips away every illusion you had about people. But maybe that's also the gift hidden inside it. Because once the illusions die, the truth finally has room to breathe. If you're watching this while grieving someone, listen to me carefully. You are not weak for hurting. You are not broken because you can't move on fast enough. And anyone who tries to weaponize your pain against you does not deserve access to your heart. Sometimes surviving is the bravest thing a person can do, and sometimes walking away from the people who hurt you is how healing finally begins. If this story touched you in any way, leave a comment below and tell me what part hit you the hardest. And if you've ever had to rebuild yourself after betrayal or loss, I want you to know you're not alone. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more real emotional stories every week.